Record to the.
I'm going to record. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, and I'm channeling our film tonight. Oh, yes, we're watching the Magnificent Ambersons, which we've already watched for you out there in movie land. We are portraying the characters as Ruthie and I do each week. Ruthie has a wonderful Victorian, Ruthie Landis, you all from Chicago, has a wonderful Victorian poof. And then Robert, as always, just please tell me that you're not being the son in this show, because I hope, you know, there's some other young man.
I'm channeling director writer Orson Wells.
There you go.
Yes, exactly.
I honestly wanted to take off my glove and slap the son so many times. And Ann Baxter, my God, can anybody be that much of a perfectionist of controlling her emotions? But we watched this film, and I know, Robert, you have lots. Robert Gwaltney, you all, is my co-host, and he is going to tell us a little backstory about the film, because he always does such wonderful research. Robert?
Oh, okay. That was my cue. I'm sorry. So I'm just so taken away by Kathy and by Ruthie. Ruthie, I keep thinking you're going to sing a big number from Sweeney Todd. Going to kick you in the pie.
I wanted to have a longer nose like Agnes Moorehead.
Yeah.
Just as long as you don't have any of those nasty meat pies. I can't watch that film. It puts me off the trough for a year. Can't watch it. Okay, onward and upward.
Sure. Well, so The Magnificent Ambersons is a 1942 film that was adapted from the 1918 Pulitzer Prize winning novel by Booth Tarkington. And it's a wonderful novel. I think it's a great adaptation. It is considered a masterpiece, though Orson Wells considered it a failure. He went away to Brazil while they were finishing editing the film, and they chopped like 100 minutes of it. They chopped the end of it off. The film footage is missing. They've not been able to locate it so they can restore the film. But I was reading that there's going to be a documentary, I think 2022, about the search for that missing footage. And when he was in Brazil, he had I guess he had the entire film with him so he could work some remotely. And so they're hoping, it was last seen in 1960 in Brazil. So they're hoping that they're going to be able to locate the film so they can restore the film as it was originally intended. Apparently, his ending, I don't think, followed the book, and they were needing they were wanting a slightly happier ending to the film than what Orson Welles had portrayed it as.
It was the thing about the film that intrigued me is really the young man who's the main character, especially at the first part of the film, where it shows him running rampantly with the horse and carriage through the town and running people over, and he grows up he's a brat.
Georgie Miniver.
Yes, I actually when I watched it when I was younger, it didn't bother me so much, but for some reason I was just like, it really bothered me this time. And then the fact that it's always interesting when they have the worst character in the world fall for the most loveliest human being on the planet. I mean, the Ann Baxter role played by the young woman whose father was raising her and Joseph Cotton played her father. That he played a wonderful role. The mother was I thought it was impeccably done. I thought the sets were great. I thought the side characters were great. But the thing that I enjoyed the most about the film was the scenes where they were riding with the horseless carriage and the horse carriages, because they had the winds blowing on them in the snow. So I have come all bundled up in layers and layers. And to show everybody, I've come, so I won't be a frozen Charlotte. Now, if you don't know what a frozen Charlotte is, this is an actual frozen Charlotte, a little miniature porcelain doll. But back in that time period when they would travel by horses, they bundle the children in these little sleighs. And, it was bumpy. Did you see how they were whipping around those things? And the child was so bundled in, but it was so freezing cold that oftentimes when they would get to the final destination or the party or wherever they were going, they'd unbundle the child and the child would be dead, completely frozen.
Well, thank you, Kathy Murphy, for that uplifting remembrance.
I've been fascinated by these frozen Charlottes ever since. And if you ever go to St. Louis, Missouri, at the big, Westward Movement Museum there, they have a whole segment on frozen Charlottes. And I brought back my daughters each a replica. And they go, Mom, you are so strange.
And Ruthie giggles with glee. She's just so thrilled with that anecdote.
Oh, I love anything macabre.
It is macabre. So, the whole feel and the look of the Magnificent Ambersons is stunning. It's Shakespearean, it's Gothic in nature. His camera angling, the way that he positions actors. There's that magnificent scene when they begin the party and the doors open and the couple, they're walking in and the wind is blowing and it's rattling through the gaslit chandeliers. And the minute you pass through those doors, there's this constant fluidity. I mean, it's like a choreographed waltz, that entire section. Constant movement. When they gather around the punch bowl, how they walk in, how they're angled, how they're photographed, is just stunning. And then the perpetual movement between Georgie and young Lucy up the stairs through the ballroom, it's masterful.
Sitting on the stairs and not tripping. I mean, I would have a really horrible time with those skirts and trying to dance around the dance floor backwards and twirling and all these other people. And they walk right through the dancers, just like to go get some refreshment. Just like, I mean, wouldn't you walk around but no,
not Georgie Miniver. No,
Georgie.
It's his party.
And Orson Wells, besides, just having such an eye for movement and transformation. I mean, his voice, has there ever been a voice like that in our lives, that he does the narration?
It's stunning.
And you don't know who the narrator is. Who is the narrator? Is it just some omniscient person? Is it someone fascinated with this family? Who is the narrator?
Right, and the novel is told in third person, so you really don't have a sense. It is omniscient, so you don't really know who the narrator is, other than it's a person who's traveled through time to follow the fate of this family from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But I love, oh my gosh, and Agnes Moorehead as
this is favorite. She
was nominated for an Academy Award for her part. She did not win, but talk about magnificent.
Well, that's who I wanted to talk about, and that's why I dressed up as close to her as I could get. Because I think her character is the most dimensional of all the characters, because I think that so little Georgie is a brat because his mother is a wimp. I mean, and his father is a wimp. He's not a brat just born a brat. He's a brat because she spoiled the what out of him.
Ruthie, do you remember that? Ruthie, do you remember that line where the narrator says, or someone in the chorus there says, well, she couldn't love the father, so what was she to do but to put all of her love onto her child?
I know, but it was so sick.
Yeah.
And even up till the very end, it was so sick. I mean, so the monster that Georgie was created by that couple, and that she chose a loveless marriage when she loved Joseph Cotton, and then she was just a martyr to the very end. But Agnes Moorehead, to watch this, she longed for Joseph Cotton. She just longed for him so much. And she was invisible. She was invisible and treated abusively by really, I think, everyone, because yet there was a closeness between her and Georgie. It was interesting. She
There
was the
was.
only one who told him like it was. And so even though she was so needy and lost, and the spinster aunt, she told him like it was. She called him out, and I do think he had a weird respect for her in some way.
I do
And then,
too.
and then there was, because she was more real with him than his own mother. She was the mother was just, oh my God. So then I just loved how she found in herself an acceptance that she would never get. She wasn't a victim to the end. She chose the higher ground. So you know how sometimes you see a character that they respond as if in their finest hour. And I feel that's what she did. She accepted it at a certain point. This is never going to be what I want it to be. And so I am going to come from a place of love. And she was so kind to her sister-in-law, so kind to her, and quite transcendent, I thought.
Well, she was the as you said, she was multidimensional, but she also, there was this vulnerability that you didn't feel from anyone else
No.
in the film. And the trajectory, of her character from very early on, when she's not a part of the Amberson family, she's looking outside with the chorus, looking onto the home. They're talking all about it. It has, it has running water. It has this. It has that. It has all of the $60,000 just in the woodwork alone.
Yes.
So they're talking, and so she's on the outside looking in,
Yeah.
and she, through her relationship with her brother, because she's a young spinster, she's a Miniver, and he marries into that family. She's able to go live there with the family, so she has a certain level of prestige in society, I suppose.
But also indebtedness.
Exactly. Absolutely. So who is she without them? And there's that one moment, the only moment that you see anyone with great emotion, when Wilbur Minifer dies. They're at the viewing. All the others are passing through. And of course, George is upset, but there's that moment where they stop and the camera closes in on Agnes Moorehead's mourning face, and she is just abject grief. And I believe that part of it is what will happen to me now.
Of course, is her transformation or higher ground catalyzed by survival.
Yes.
Because she could be thrown out right in a minute.
And the mother, she was raised by the rules. And if you broke a rule, then even if she was madly in love with the Joseph Cotton, he tried to serenade her drunk, and that was just inexcusable. So to her, it was more important what society viewed her as marrying somebody who had not embarrassed her. And
I think also, wasn't she was wanting, the Minivers had a certain clout and prestige, and so whether he had embarrassed her or not embarrassed her, I just think she was all about, the image, all about the image.
Not much different from Daisy,
I know, wasn't that?
We could have compared The Great Gatsby with the Magnificent Ambersons, because
Absolutely.
It's the same kind of story. You get the spoiled, children being raised, and yet the young woman who, now she's nothing like Nick or anything like that, but the young Ann Baxter character, she's just like saintly. I mean, I was
Lucy Morgan.
Oh.
I know. I'm thinking, when she first meets George Miniver there at the party, and he's just, but I think she seemed to be fascinated with him because she never met anyone like him, like in her entire life. there's that moment where they're having this conversation, and he's learning about what her father does, and he thinks that the horse's carriage will just be the end of society. I mean, it's just going to be a flash of the pan. And so, and he feels sorry for all the doctors and the lawyers. What do they know of life? What are they going to experience? And she looks up at him and she says, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And there's this pause, and he says, a yachtsman.
A yachtsman. I know, wasn't that great? But she turned, like that one moment it was like at the train station or something like that. And she was like, goodbye, I don't care. Goodbye, you can go. And then he leaves, and then you just feel her getting crushed and just, taking the mask off. She took, it was a beautiful moment, just beautiful. And she had to play that with him. She had to. The attraction there was interesting because, like, her father. So let's talk about Joseph Cotton.
Yeah.
Oh, bring me Joseph Cotton.
There is something amazing about him. There
Yes.
is, like,
he is superior at holding back.
Yeah, it's so still. His work is so still and internal always.
And I think to myself, to me, he has the hardest role. If you're throwing a fit or something, man, put me in there. I'm one of those people that can probably just go ballistic, but try to hold me back and play. I remember in Mrs. Lincoln. Remember Sally Field, and she was always just
on the verge of that.
In public, she was always just, but otherwise she was well outspoken. It would be hard for me. I'd be the Annie Oakley back that time period. I don't know where I'd be, but I certainly wouldn't be at their house. I can't even imagine.
We were talking about the social mores and the rules of class, and it's those very rules that was really their undoing in the end. They weren't able to look forward. They were only able to look back and live in the past. And Joseph Cotton represents the future.
Yes. Yeah, the visionary.
Yes.
And yet there's nothing dramatic about him. But there's something substantial about him. He wasn't a typical dreamer, was he?
Right.
No.
He dreamed, and he was a visionary, but he was also quite practical. And in fact, he did very well for himself, didn't he? She could have been living a very happy life.
But when you think about the big picture story about the automobile, and then how they talked about the end, and here now everybody's talking about auto emissions and pollution and all this stuff, and how he changed his way of thinking about, maybe he was right. Maybe I did create something that was going to be the downfall of man. The more we create and more we invent and make our lives simpler, we also become more sedentary. We aren't moving as much. We're therefore losing a lot of our vigor and health, and quite frankly, very few people spend their life on the treadmill and the gym, especially now. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
It was powerful. It was
Orson
at the dinner
Wells,
table, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's probably why Booth Tarkington, and he wrote many books. I'd forgotten that he had written this story, and I think I've got one of his books somewhere around the house, but I did not realize he'd won the Pulitzer for it.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, and it's in the beginning is written so beautifully when they're going through the passage of time with men's clothing, and how quickly the styles change.
The
and
baggy pants and the
time moves on, things change. So thematically, just on point. And then there's those portentous comments when you have young Georgie riding through town with his little Lord Fauntleroy curls, and they're saying, "You'll get your comeuppance, Georgie Miniver, one day. You'll get your comeuppance." And it really is, it does come full circle. And, and he does. He gets his comeuppance threefold.
Because nothing's left to him.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't the house left to the aunt?
I don't think that that house was his. I think it was on her side of the family, don't you?
Well,
Because no,
so
the uncle, it was the uncle. Wasn't it the uncle?
there
Because
there was an uncle.
so it was the mother's brother
Mhm.
was an Amberson. The house was an Amberson, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
he got the house.
Yeah, I can't remember how all of that unfolded, but when it was all said and done, you know, that they have to, he and his Aunt Fanny have to move off to a boarding house.
Yep.
And
And she rises up and she gets the idea. I'll do a boarding. Remember, I could do a
Yes.
boarding house and
Right.
I can work and I'll make. I mean, so she becomes kind of
She is a businesswoman.
entrepreneurial.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Georgie's practically useless. And it's interesting too. An automobile is what was almost the undoing of his life. You know, that automobile accident that breaks both his legs. And of course they see it in the newspaper, and they go on to check in on
We've
him.
got to go to him, Father. We've got to go. Oh my.
You know, back on just the art of that filmmaking, Orson Welles utilized these huge cranes, and they were so heavy that it really impacted their ability to record sound properly, because you could hear it.
The motor, yeah.
The motor, and of course the way that the wood would creak and shift under the tires. So they had to figure out how to combat that. He was such a perfectionist. I don't know if you notice in the sound recording, but there are these moments where their voices are almost ethereal. So he went back and dubbed them because he was so obsessed with a certain quality of their speaking voices.
Yeah.
And Agnes Moorehead's voice, I mean, there was a little girl quality at times to her voice.
Oh, I know. She made it so light. And remember, you know, like when she was in Bewitched, she was
Right,
Dora, you know, but she was like a little like Arrested Development in a way, but she had the biggest growth.
Yes, absolutely. She grew the most by the end. But there was this at times this sound of wonder in her voice. You know, when they were out and they're cranking the car and she's excited and she's in the snow. And to me, those were heartbreaking moments to experience that joy. That's why she was nominated for an Academy Award. She's just brilliant and just stunning at certain angles to look at, the way that they photographed her.
I know, like she wore no makeup.
No makeup.
Like she had no makeup at all on.
Well, the interesting thing about Agnes Moorehead is they said in person she was beautiful, but they always made her up to be kind of that catty spinstery type. You know, I could see her playing the Wicked Witch in Wizard of Oz. I mean, that's the kind of roles that they would classically put her in. But when my mother went to Hollywood back in the 50s, she shared this, I think her agent, they went out to dinner with Agnes Moorehead and Agnes Moorehead's agent, because it was the thing to be seen with a famous star and their agent if you were coming up the pike. The only problem is, you know, my mom didn't stay long enough to get up a step. You know, she was there like 2 weeks.
Oh.
She gave up quickly.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's hard. It was hard then. It's even harder now. And and with COVID, I think everybody's selling t-shirts, or, you know, they're not even working in restaurants now. They're just panhandling and just doing whatever they can to get by. It's really sad. But my mother told me, and I think I have this in my book. She said her skin was porcelain perfection. She was just beautiful. But I think she could have been like Betty Davis if she'd been given the makeup and the roles. She could have played the young ingenue and the belle of the ball, but they did not. And she didn't photograph. So
even though she may have been beautiful in person, so much was about how you photographed. And with Betty Davis, even though she wasn't a typical beauty, she had eyes for days. Her
Oh,
eyes
gosh,
were
yeah.
everything, right? And Agnes Moorehead didn't.
She was not soft.
That's right.
it.
She was
She has
sharp.
She was
She
not
has a little
Sharp.
sharper edge about her, but she had a fabulous figure.
Yes.
She was very, but I can remember, it was terrible, but Marjorie Main, who is of that same time era, I can remember seeing Marjorie Main, who played Ma Kettle, and because I loved her, when she was in her first film, she looked just like Agnes Moorehead in that film. She had the tiny cinch Victorian with the poof mutton sleeve, turn of the century dresses, and then later on she had on the farm woman house dress with no brassiere. She
With
just
the booty.
chewing gum.
they were,
Can I
she was-
just say, I just want to say something about, like how your mom went to Hollywood. And, I was out there many times, during what they would call, where you try to audition for a new series or, and something coming up. And it would always be like in January, February, March. So I would go for 3-4 months at a time. But I have to say something. Hollywood was and still remains very forgiving for the way a man looks, but not the way a woman looks. So you are typed so quickly by the way, the planes of your face, the way you photograph,
Mhm.
and there's nothing you can do about it. And the quality of your voice, there's nothing you can do about it. So somebody like Agnes Moorehead, who had a kind of more, like you said, sharp or pinched look to her a little bit, who didn't look vulnerable, but that's what made her so phenomenal, was because she was so vulnerable, even though she didn't have that look. I think she had the chops, but I don't think they gave her a chance because she photographed with a certain austerity to
There
her,
was an aquiline quality to her.
Yes.
Aquiline, that's a good word. Good word. That describes it perfectly. Because she's very angular, but Marlene Dietrich was too.
Yes, but she had those eyes.
There was there was this odd. Well, there was an overt sexuality about Marlene Dietrich. too.
Exactly.
She appealed to both men and women,
Yeah.
and she was pretty cool. I always thought I liked her.
Yeah, and the mystery of her,
Mhm.
she exuded a kind of mystery. But then you look at the men that became leading men, and I mean, it wasn't just about how they looked. I mean, we were talking about various things over the times we've been looking at movies. Carl Malden, different people.
Well, look
that
at the
you
men
think-
that were in this movie. None of them were what I would call handsome. They
See, I
weren't
think
Robert
Jo- I
Gwaltney.
think
They
I
weren't
think-
Robert Gwaltney,
I think
No.
Joseph Cotton is handsome.
Joseph Cotton had, for me, he was attractive. He was compelling, would
Yeah.
be the word I would say.
Well, and there were these wonderful moments. The moment when Georgie and his daughter Lucy go tumbling in the snow from the sleigh, and he walks over the side to check on them, and he sees them have their first kiss, and there's just this look of happiness.
It was really cute. I thought he handled it in such a cute way and not making it dirty or you're doing something wrong. He was just like, well, looks like,
Yeah.
he
And
was,
he knew that Georgie was a jerk, but he knew, because he was so in love with Georgie's mother, that there must be something lovely and compelling about him. So he was always so open-hearted to Georgie. And I
And
think
don't you think he trusted his daughter? She was
yes.
Oh, of course.
she was the cat's meow. I mean, she was smart, she was savvy, And she was
Self-possessed.
beautiful.
She was beautiful, but the mother puzzles me because, I often see men attracted to that type of woman, and they just look like they don't have anything above the ears, just airheads.
Vapid.
Yes.
Yeah.
She just,
Dolores Costello, the actress, and who was, a lot of them, I think the core of those actors were Mercury players from the Orson Wells group back in the radio days.
Right.
wow.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because if you think about that, the mother's voice, it was, he cast not only for the look, but he always cast from the auditory. He was highly visual, don't you think, and highly auditory.
Right.
So
yes.
Do you think that your voices have changed over the years?
well, mine has.
I just learned how to take all of my Beauty in the Book shows and put them up on my YouTube channel. And so I hadn't seen them in a long time. So I thought they were playing while I was doing it. And I go, my voice is so much higher. I go, wow, not only do I look a lot different, I really sound a lot different. That was really strange to hear how much lower my voice has gotten through the years. But I kind of like the lower voice.
Yeah, mine was the kinds of voiceover work that I did was always kind of the light, really young airhead. If you looked at my commercials from a long time ago, they were light and, kind of spacey, ditzy, but as my voice has gotten more gravelly, more down, and I wonder if I had this voice then, whether that would have made a difference in casting.
Oh, it did for a lot of young actresses. Look at Lauren Bacall. I mean, she always had this sultry voice, And you always, when you hear an actor, we have every year when we have our live girlfriend weekends at the ball, we have a Timber Guy sexy reading contest because I saw Nathan, let me think of his name. He's the actor that starred on that show where he plays an author who works with a detective on solving crime. And he writes books about it, and they actually published one of the books. And the book is just hilarious to read aloud because it's got always these sexy scenes in it. So on one of his readings, when he went around.
Oh, Nathan Killian, the guy. Yes.
So he did a reading, and I was listening to his voice. And I go, dang, he does have a sexy voice. So we started having all the men that came to Girlfriend Weekend do that. The people who won were never the ones you would go by their looks. And I had a newspaper man win one year, and he had a shaved head. He was a big man. He did not look like he would be the winner. And he stole the show. When he read, we were just like, oh my God, there's a lot to be said for voices.
Mm-hmm.
And Orson Welles had this, you can close your eyes and you can hear his voice. You can
like Morgan Freeman.
And Morgan Freeman. But look what happened with Orson Welles. He got enormous. He was not what you would call attractive. He was enormous. And yet that voice was just, it was like melting chocolate or something.
Yes.
Well, it's always fun to see who's, you can't pick ahead of time, but just people lining up, they go, oh, well, he's going to win. It always, I go by the voice, and it's so much fun. But women too. There's some women that when they talk, you just like, wow, you're listening. You're really listening. So the voiceovers and people that make their money on dubbing and stuff, that's fascinating to me. Well, when we got to the ending of, since I have not read the book, have you read the book?
I
And
have not. I've only read sections of the book.
I have it somewhere. I'm going to find it and see if I can go back and read how they ended.
So the end is not. It's interesting. So the version that I saw, and I pulled the novel. I have the book on my Kindle, and I went to the end, and it follows the closing scene where they're in the hospital, and he feels as if someone else was there in the room with him. So I think that Orson Welles's ending was. I think he veered from the book, and then that's what they deleted. That's some of the footage that they took away.
You know, I understand the mentality behind changing because people want to make it their own. Just like Broadway musical is always different than the film or the book. Everybody puts their own spin on it. And I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes they're both great. I mean, and then even though they're a lot different, but it was interesting about, and do you know what Orson Welles went from that film to the next? What is the next film?
I'll have to look. You know, he felt like the Magnificent Ambersons ended his career. That was his personal belief.
Really? In the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
What year did he do the War Between the Worlds?
Let's see. Well, so that was a movie broadcast. Did he act? I don't know if he did the film.
It was a radio broadcast, but
I'm going to.
Most of the people in the country thought it was real. That's what was.
Orson Welles. Let's pull him up. Well, you know, when we were talking, you know, all of those individuals, the lion's share of those individuals that were in the film that were part of the Mercury Playhouse were radio personalities. So that's why they had such stunning voices. And that's one of the reasons why Orson Welles was so obsessed with the quality of voices. And that's why he would go back and dub certain elements to emphasize certain words and certain phrasings. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find his filmography here. Orson Welles.
Because I was thinking War Between the Worlds came after that, after 42. Wasn't that done like, maybe I'm wrong, but I remember people listen to the radio programs and that he did it so convincingly that it put the country in a panic.
So let's see, there was, of course, 1941 Citizen Kane, 1942 The Magnificent Ambersons, 1943 he was in Journey into Fear. He was the lead villain. He had uncredited directorship. He directed a film in 1946, The Stranger, 1947, The Lady from Shanghai, 1948, Macbeth, 1951, Othello, 1955, Mr. Arkadin, 1958, you'll remember this one, Touch of Evil, I believe Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, yeah.
1962, The Trial, 1965, Crimes at Midnight, 1968, The Immortal Story, 73, F for Fake, 78, Filming Othello, 1990, Don Quixote, 2018, The Other Side of the Wind. But
so it doesn't tell you when he did the radio program.
Yeah, well, so I can find his radio credits.
I mean, really, after Citizen Kane, weren't you saying that, Kathy, last time about this feeling of you have this huge hit that can't even be touched, and then how do you follow it? You talked about that last time.
1938. So it was before. Okay. I was thinking it was after. I remember when, Citizen Kane has been talked about just like the Maltese Falcon or what's some other ones like that people just talk about. Casablanca. They talk about these movies like, I don't even know how to explain it, but I never saw the complete movie until I had my daughter, Eleni, and this was January 1990, and I was in the hospital, and it came on, and I thought, I'm going to watch this damn thing from start to finish, not just, I would watch it and I get bored and I didn't understand it. And when I got done with it, kept saying, I love the cinematography and everything and the subliminal, but not my favorite film. But then I'm not a Casablanca fan. And people go, no. I go,
It's not a favorite of mine either.
And this one, even though it won the Pulitzer, I probably won't watch it again. I don't know what it was, but it just was off-putting to me, the whole thing. I've gotten to this point where I just don't have patience with people that are in films that do stupid things. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I did appreciate the story, and I did appreciate the set and the clothing and the characters who portrayed all the characters, the actors, they were great. But the overall thing was, I probably won't watch it again. I can't imagine why I want to watch it again. It's been done. And then I think about the movies that I love that I can watch over and over. I think that happens a lot as you get older, because I remember when I was a kid, every Easter, I think we watched the 10 Commandments. I loved it. I mean, I was just into everything about it. And I watched it the other day. It was the lamest movie I've ever seen. It's like, and I do not, the actor, he's everything he's in.
Charles Heston?
Oh my.
Oh no. God.
When I was a kid, I thought he was great, but now I just go, please. But I watch movies with Kirk Douglas and I go, that man was brilliant. That Kirk Douglas was a brilliant actor. And
do you know that my professor at Northwestern was Charlton Heston's sister, Lilla Heston, and she talked exactly like him. Her jaw was like this, and she was a spinster, and she was brilliant, but not easy to like. And she was just like a little version of her brother. And I don't know what his appeal was. I just don't even know.
I think he was considered very good looking at that time frame, the 60s, the 50s and 60s, but I just look at him as an arrogant old white man. He's just. And
he was major into guns.
I think that's probably what I found a little off-putting about him as he got older. I saw an interview they did, but yeah, not one of my favorites, but I'm, as far as classic movies, I don't know. I'm into musical. I love musicals. I love stories that are different. You can't put me in I don't like what everybody likes. I don't know what it is about me, but everybody will say, oh, well, you've got to see this film. You've got to see this film, and I'll see it and I'll go.
I like movies that make me laugh and make me cry. If I can run the gamut where I am moved, like where I can touch into an emotional palette inside of myself.
Like My Man Godfrey, I love that movie. What was the movie that was set during the war with, I think William Powell was the father, and he comes home from war, and then the next door neighbor boy comes home and he's only got a hook for a hand. Oh, it was the most wonderful movie ever.
The best years of our lives.
Oh my gosh, that was the best movie. And still when I watch it, I get chills every time I watch it. It always tears me up every single time. But it's funny if you haven't seen a movie in a long time, to go back and watch it. But I remember watching this film when I was younger, and I just thought it was a nice little historical film. But I watched it this time, I was just wanting to slap that young man down.
Well, I don't think there were any likable characters except Ann Baxter was sort of likable, but then you couldn't understand her attraction to him. Really, it wasn't clear. Joseph Cotton was likable, but it's like, why didn't he get on with his life? You know, he never got on with his life. He
He
was
was
holding on to
like,
the. So except for Agnes Moorehead, she was the only person I really cared about in the whole.
I have to agree with you. She was the only one that I was just hoping that it end out okay with her. I mean, at the end, the guy was alone, she was alone. Why couldn't they gotten together? He never looked at her face. Did you ever notice in the
Yes,
conversation?
he never. She was
She
invisible.
would just look at him like, if you really want to know if somebody likes somebody, look at their face. If they never make eye contact with them, if they, it's very obvious to an outsider. I can tell if there's something going on or not going on. But she would just look at him like puppy dog, and he never looked at her. But she did kind of say, okay, if this is the way it's going to be, then here I go out.
Do you remember the scene in the kitchen when she's with Georgie and the uncle and they make her cry?
Yeah.
Well, so Orson Wells was very collaborative with the Mercury Playhouse players, and all of that was improvised, that entire scene. None of it was scripted. He just let them do what they wanted to do, and that's what happened. They got it, I think, if I remember correctly, one take.
I love that. I love that when they let people improvise, because to me, oftentimes it just seems more real. You forget they're acting when they do that. That's why I love improv. I just love it when people do.
I think that, when we were talking about, and back to some of the kitchen scenes, when Georgie is home and Agnes Moorehead is making sure that he's eating properly. And she's just asking, there's the strawberry shortcake and little things like, is it sweet?
Oh, he was just snarfing that down, wasn't he?
Is it sweet enough? So there's this really caring mothering him. And I think that Georgie was, perhaps she considered him to be her own. And
I honestly felt like he had a better relationship with his aunt than his mother.
Well, that's what I think too.
His
And
mother,
she was more straight with him.
the mother was just like on drugs or something. She was
one of my favorite, she was on, I don't know, Zoloft or
pills
something.
or something.
But one of my favorite scenes between Georgie and Aunt Fanny is after the party, and they're following, and then they're following after each other. And then they're talking, but there are those moments where they're at different levels. And they're speaking.
They use the stairs a lot.
I love the stairway.
Where he's looking down at the thing, watching.
That's brilliant. And even at the end of the party, those last shots where you see the mother in profile and you see Georgie and Lucy there, and he's saying, I'm going to come pick you up at such and such time. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Okay. They're just the way. I mean, I can go back. That's what I love so much about the Magnificent Ambersons, is the art of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And that
I think that the craft of the way that it was staged and everything was great.
But where they filmed, how they filmed all the snow scenes. They did not.
Those look like real snow.
They did not film that in a studio. They filmed that in an abandoned ice house. And it was, because you could actually see their breath. So it was it was so cold. It was so cold that all the actors got nasty head colds after they filmed those ice house scenes.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Well, Orson Welles was a purist. But I do wonder what attracted him about this story. Why did he want to do it?
Well, I think that, so the story itself is a bit like the novel, doesn't really hold up. Really, I mean, there are compelling moments. If you were to go back and remake the Magnificent Ambersons, I'd be curious to see what a modern adaptation of that might look like. But you're right. You used the term earlier, vapid. There's a vapidity to many of the characters, but the one person that stands out that warms the whole story and who has the greatest hero's journey is Aunt Fanny. She
Even
changes.
Ann Baxter, she just,
Well, you didn't see Georgie's flaws were obvious. Mother, you couldn't get a good sense of depth to her, and it's her own pride that was the end to her potential for happiness, as was Georgie's. So, that it's sad. Mom wanted a good life for her son, but they both were prideful.
it's just a different time period, and everything was about, status, social standing, where you live, what you drove, what you wore, where you went. Do not do anything to disgrace, us in front of other people. And
So do you think that, so Orson Welles was a man who, his movies had a kind of activism to it, like how even his radio show,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I think, Kathy, you really nailed it, that he was making commentary on class, but he was also on, I think, that scene with Joseph Cotton when Georgie is just a jerk and talking about the cars. Now, you remember his first car was steam. Now, steam would not have been polluting, would it? And then after that, it went to fossil fuel. It went to gasoline, his new. And then when he has that scene, which I think was a very pivotal scene, where he says, when you're an inventor, you don't know the impact that is going to have on the future. And I think those are the kinds of things Orson Welles was attracted to in his films. Yeah. Like in Citizen Kane, I think the reason you were bored, Kathy, is because it's quite an intellectual film.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a heart film, it's intellectual and brilliant. I mean, all the things we're just saying about this film, every choice point, everything like that was made, but he was trying to make political statements. He was trying to make statements about people and society. And there's a place for that, there. Yeah. I think Warren Beatty, the films that he directed and stuff, he's an activist. They have a kind of intellectual quality to it. But I think what you're saying, Kathy, similar to me, is that, am I moved? Do I care about these people? Do I want to go on a journey with them?
I was thinking about a film, and I don't know if you guys seen it, but the characters are horrible in it. I mean, every character in it is just pretty despicable. And it's Ron Rash's novel about a timber baron.
Serena.
Oh my gosh. I love Serena.
I never saw it.
It stars Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper. And they are horrible people, but there is something about that film and that story. Well, I love Ron Rash. There's something about that. Even though, it used to be you want to have somebody in there that you like that's a good guy. There's no good guys in this film. But there's something about their relationship and this thing that, even though I did not like the characters at all, I could watch that movie over and over.
Well, they're interesting, fascinating character studies, especially Serena, the character. I mean, good heavens, it's a wonderful read.
It is a wonderful read, and the movie was not
very gothic. It didn't achieve the tone, in my opinion, that the book did, the film.
Ron Rash's books, like everything that he touches, always have this dark
The Code is
undertone.
my favorite. His novel, The Code, is my
I
favorite.
think the one about the river and the girl drowning.
Oh, yeah, that's the opening of that is chilling.
It's
Love Ron
just,
Rash.
yeah, it's Saints Across the River. It's about a young family goes to the river and the water's up, and this girl slips and falls and she's drowned. But the problem is there's an undertow at the end of the falls and it pulls her underneath. There's a rock down there and she gets lodged. And so the whole story is about, do we get the body out? We leave the body. They want the body out. How do you get the body out? And it's, you can't, every story he touches, he's started out as a poet. He teaches Appalachian studies at a university in Kentucky, I believe. And everything he touches is gold as far as I'm concerned. And he's the only poet that I absolutely, well, there's a few others, but I adore his poetry. But back to the story about Orson Welles. Orson Welles, what was the movie that he did where it was they went to Mexico and there's a Ferris wheel scene with a gun? I watched it years ago. It's fascinating because it's a black and white film. And oh, you guys, I think my computer came unplugged. Hang on just a second. Yeah, hang on. I don't want to go blank on y'all. That would be tragic. But anyway, his films are more about creating this place, everything. He does a lot of things with light and shadow and angles.
Yes.
Either looking up or looking down or from a angle that's not just straight on listening to people. It's watching them walk through crowds. He has a certain style that is pretty recognizable. I mean, I can watch a Tim Burton film and I don't even know it's a Tim Burton film. And I go, this is a Tim Burton film. And I'll look it up and I go, oh yeah, Tim Burton, was involved. Same way that you get so that you recognize certain director styles.
Well, I think that, just like he had narrators always, you would hear the voice of the narrator. That is not a common model, that everybody was using. And so I think he used the camera as a voice too. It's like, what does the camera choose to look at? And how does it choose to look at it?
It's almost, it's almost like a character. And the fact that the angles and the different ways that he has it coming forth is like another presence. You're
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's pretty fascinating. Yeah, it really is.
So my mentor at Northwestern in taking novels and even some nonfiction and transforming it into performance. So he was so, his teaching was so much about that narrative voice and how would it translate, keeping the exact point of view of the narrator. Like, what are they seeing? Why are they telling this now? And from what angle and how? And I really think that Orson Welles was fascinated with that as well. And it was life-changing for me to look at literature that way. Yeah, I'm almost most fascinated with the narrative voice of, who is that person telling this story? Why are they telling it?
I don't remember who said this at one of our sessions or writers clubs or whatever, but they said when you have narration of a story, you can get through a lot of history fast.
Yeah.
it's, you can describe, instead of just show me, showing takes hours and hours of film. But if you have a little narration coming in there, you
Right.
can move the story forward at a faster pace.
And you don't have that awful expositional dialogue, which is always horrible when you have to tell exposition through dialogue and it's so contrived.
Sometime, you go, okay, you kind of
Give me a
lose.
break.
Yeah, you just go, okay, let's move on. Yeah. Well, that was a great suggestion for us. I learned a lot from
too.
watching
Yeah.
this
Me too.
particular film. And it's always interesting to me when they set a film in another time that's not of our time. 1942, doing a film that was filmed set in the turn of the century.
Yes.
Like 1915, something like that. That's fascinating. And there are some filmmakers that just get fascinated with certain time periods,
Oh, I thought it was set in 1860,
I think it starts in,
1865.
that's when it starts, yeah.
Yeah, it starts in 1865, doesn't it?
But you didn't have the horseless carriages and everything till after the turn of the century, right?
Right, so it kind of, when I looked it
Well,
up,
It starts certainly early Victorian.
Yeah. Because you watch the skirts go up, the modern woman time. The skirts go up, the hair is less Victorian and more upswept or styled in a different manner. And the skirts come up. Victorians wore and the modern woman wore them at mid-knee, below. Yeah. Well, I got mine up. I even put the cameo, the
I
bright.
was looking all over for my cameo. I couldn't find it. So
I found my cameo earrings. I thought, well, these things are always in my mind when I think about this stuff. So, what
What's
do we
next?
have? Yeah, what's next?
The Age of Innocence, the film adaptation of Edith Wharton's novel, The Age of Innocence, by Francis Ford Coppola.
Whoa, I'm looking forward to that.
Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer.
I haven't seen that one since it probably, when did it come out?
Oh gosh, or 90s maybe.
Yeah, because it's kind of like I was that way when we watched Urban Cowboy. I had not seen it since it came out, and it just took me immediately back to that time. And I can remember the clothes that I wore and how I wore my hair. Some of these, are not in my time frame, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. But that'll be great. Do we have one after that?
We do. Let's see what our upcoming schedule's looking like. So after The Age of Innocence, Palms, The Tree,
Oh, Palms.
James
Oh,
Stanley,
boy.
and then To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, this is a wild eclectic bunch, but Palms is a new movie that's been filmed with Diane Keaton, and you'll recognize many of these character actors that are in the film. And it's about a woman who sells her home and moves into a gated assisted living lifestyle community it's priceless. It's Diane Keaton is one of my favorite actors as contemporary, because she has a way of talking about real life situations where 1 minute you're laughing your head off and the next minute you're just kind of, your heart's broke. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Baby Boom.
Yes, love Baby Boom.
Baby Boom is one of my favorite Diane Keaton movies. I never was, a lot of people loved her in the Woody Allen. That was not my favorite films of hers, but I've just recently watched her in Palms and another one where she meets a homeless man. She always has a little bit of a social issue underneath she did Book Club, which was, again, repeating another thing about kind of a snapshot of, the 50 Shades of Grey era, which I had a bookstore when that book came out, and everybody goes, "Are you going to carry it?" And I go, "Is anybody going to read it?" And then I got special orders for it, and I would order it for special orders. So I read it. I go, oh my, really? They say they now, tens of thousands of these are in used bookstores across the country. They can't get rid of them fast enough, and nobody's buying them. It was a trend. It was a trendy book. It was
The good old days when we all wanted to be whooped and spanked.
Not me. That was not my thing. But
Robert, naughty.
when that book came out, the girls that were ordering it were like late 20s, early 30s. And they were buying it in packs. And I just go, I don't think they didn't grow up in a family that had abuse. If you grow up in a family that has,
well, I don't think any of that sexually has anything to do with abuse. And Ruthie Landis, I'm sure, could speak more on this, but I think it has to do with letting go and being submissive. I'm sure that there are cases where individuals have been abused, and but there's that, of course, that fine line between pleasure and pain. But I do think there's the fantasy of people being able to let go of themselves,
to surrender and dominance versus, it's interesting, over the years, different clients. So a lot of the let's say the power types, 8, 9, and 1 on the Enneagram, which are about power and control, when they want to be they're so tired of trying to control things all the time that they kind of like to swap roles.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a relief to them to play the other role.
Man.
And then the person who is less dominant gets to be dominant. And I know it's really, you would think it's aberrant, but different strokes for different folks.
Good line. Good line.
That's different strokes.
Strokes, whips.
Okay, Age of Innocence. I gotta watch it because I'm not coming up with.
Oh, I love that film.
So what are we going to dress up? How do we dress up?
Obsessively. Well, you could probably recycle some of what you're wearing now.
Really?
Yes, you could. Now,
well, I wouldn't do
Kathy
that.
would rather die than recycle.
No, I can't recycle.
You are so right. I'm going to have to come up with something. It's just like the year we did The Wizard of Oz for Girlfriend Weekend. Everything had been done to death. I mean, how many wicked witches and Glindas could you have, and Dorothy's and the Scarecrow? So I thought, what am I going to go as? I went as the damn tornado. I got a black ghoul outfit, and I sewed a fishing line with farm equipment and cows, and I came in twirling, and all of them were swirling around me. It was so funny, and I had a ball at the Girlfriend Weekend.
I thought you were going to tell me you were going to be a naughty munchkin and you forgot your bloomers.
Well,
I would have liked to be one of those monkeys.
The monkeys were pretty cute.
Yeah, flying monkeys. They terrified me as a child.
Oh, of course.
When I was a kid.
Oh, really?
None of the things that were scary bothered me. I was a little fearful of those guys. Home, home, home. It was that they, look very kind of bossy, they kind of freaked me out. And I kept thinking, oh, you got to get away, guys. Then the poor lions coming up over the rocks, and there they are, and they're Russian looking. The witch didn't bother me. I won't go into why, but the witch didn't bother me, and I just.
Toto was kind of cute. Toto.
I actually, if I was going to go as anybody, I'd probably go as Miss Gulch. Wasn't her name Gulch?
Yeah, Elvira Gulch.
Elvira Gulch, and the bicycle. If I
Well, isn't she she
Yeah.
is
yeah,
the
but
dream?
it is before she was a witch. When she
Yeah.
was on the bicycle and she took the little Toto away from Dorothy and was
Yes.
going to do away with him. I mean, she was very interesting. She was interesting, but okay. So we've got Age of
Okay.
Innocence, we've got Palms, we've got To Kill a Mockingbird. And what was the other one?
Trees. Something trees. The trees.
That movie about the.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
I've not seen Palms or The Trees.
it's lovely. It's a lovely story. I just happened upon it late one night. You know, when you watch another film and it'll give you 4 or 5 more that are similar. I thought, what's this? A girl and 2 little girls in a treehouse. I'll watch this. Oh, it's like it's a quiet movie. It's a quiet movie about, there's a lot of driving in it, and there's a lot of interesting characters. And it's about an older woman at the end of her life. It's fabulous. I will tell you before we go that last night I went on a movie watching binge. I didn't realize that Oprah Winfrey had done the movie The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. She plays the daughter in the film. It's absolutely spectacular. It's one of those movies where it will haunt me for a long time, about this family whose mother died of cancer, and they took her cells and they're keeping them alive forever. They said they can go for 100 more years, and the family received it was without permission. They received no compensation. And there's a lot of great things that happened from it. But you have to understand the dynamic of what had happened to this family. And it was the story about the author who wrote the book and how she researched it. You will not be able to stop watching it. Oprah Winfrey is a brilliant actress. That's her finest calling as far as I'm concerned, because The Color Purple, she was everything I've seen her in, she's brilliant. And then I watched one of my author's books that's gone to film, and her name is Regina Louise. She lives in California. She's owns a Redken salon. And when she was a child, from the time she was 13, she ran away to live with her father, and her father was the right-hand man to Barry White. And he had remarried a girl either of mixed, she looks white, but of mixed heritage. And there was it didn't work out. She ran away. This young woman who was 13, 14, went through foster care after foster care after foster care, to orphanage, to homes, to juvenile, to psychiatric. It's brilliant. And Regina was the executive producer on the film. And I'm going to try to get her for Girlfriend Weekend. I've been trying to get her to come for years. And I even asked her, when the film comes out, let me know, because I want everybody to watch it. So I'm going to be doing probably a blog about both those films. They're life-changing films. I recommend them to everybody. And they came out, I guess, Oprah's came out just before COVID. And then Regina's just came out in 2017. But you just got to watch it. It's called, the book was called Somebody Someone by Regina Louise. And the book is I'm Somebody Someone. I mean, the film. And then I think the movie of Rebecca Skloot's book is called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. But they're both very well done, and they did a good job. So I was on a movie binge last night. Now I'm going, how am I going to find anything to beat that? You know, I guess I'll have to go watch the Age of Innocence tonight or something.
Yes.
So have a wonderful week. let's hope everybody I've talked to is dealing with COVID right now. So let's pray for the world. Hopefully everything's going back into lockdown. You know, we're just going to do the best that we can. And that's it. It's a wonderful life if you make the right choices and read good books and watch great films. We're having a good time at it, and no telling how many hats I'll put on for the next one. But there's actually, this is, you know, I've got parts of 3 hats in here and tied it on with an 80s
Brilliant idea.
disco belt or whatever. Whatever. We have fun with it, don't we, Ruthie? We have fun with it, don't we, Robert? And I love the new video with the moving cicadas.
Oh, the animated cover. Yeah.
That was fabulous. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many of those damn things I keep finding. They're everywhere, just flop dead. And I got a bag of them. I'm working on a project.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, instead of doing a flea circus, I'll do a theater circus where I act out your film with cicadas.
Wonderful.
Have a Russian puppet theater.
Yeah.
And I thought if I mounted all of these little things on sticks or strings,
It could be puppets.
they could be puppets. And, you know, you saw my Mexican chairs, my Bollywood chairs, whatever you want to call them. I did those, and I've been on now everybody wants me to do a tour of my house. So I've got 3 rooms ready. I've got to get a couple more, but my daughter's coming to get the rest of her stuff out tonight. So she's headed in. You guys have a wonderful evening. This will be airing, everybody, Saturday night. Sorry we had to pre-record, but we have busy lives, and there's some other author events coming up that an author event Robert had to go to. And so sometimes we're just going to have to record. But otherwise, join us live every Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. If you're a member, you can come and join us live on the broadcast, or we'll do them live again on Facebook, on FaceTime. I think that was a lot of fun. Even though I didn't have it quite figured out last time, I do now. So have a wonderful week. I'm going to go manifest on my gemstone, Ruthie, for better times for the world. Robert, have a great week. Have fun Saturday night. I want a full report on the book signing, and keep all your good news coming. Bye, everybody. This was a capital evening.
Capital. Fabulous, fabulous, to use Robert's word of the day. Fabulous.
Fabulous. Thank God we're fabulous.
I have changed that to fantabulous. Don't know why. It's kind of like leopardlicious. It's things I just make up. So have a wonderful night. Let's keep sharing the conversation. It's all about the story, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.